you that, oh good, Christine, I'm glad you're joining in for sewing. So for those of you that just joined us, if you want to get ready, walking foot is on. I have regular thread in my bobbin. I have embroidery thread in the top because the first thing we're going to do is quilt. So if you want to go ahead and get ready with that. You have your fabrics ready. And at 1 o'clock, I will go over the list again of fabrics. But they are posted on Miss Loreens Schoolhouse Facebook page, but I will go over them again before we start. So if anybody needs to get some pressing, ironing done, or get out your tools, I just put in a new needle because I haven't done one for a bit. And so I put a top stitch 80-12 in. I left my pack out so I wouldn't forget to mention that. You're going to need a mat, rotary cutter, ruler. Oh, that reminds me, probably have a drink of water would be good. Are there any questions anyone has before we start? Because we got about 2 or 3 minutes to go. Everybody can see okay, hear okay. You might want a chalk walking pen. That was silly. Chalk marking pen. I'm going to talk about the friction pen because it may not be the best choice. I'm using one of my old favorites. This is a marking pen that disappears after a day or two. They call it air erase. It's always purple. And the one that's water erase is always blue. Because they say that, and now they'll come out with something new. But the blue water, that makes sense. The purple, I'm not sure what the purple in the air. But since I like purple, it's easy for me to remember. Hi, Cindy. Are you sewing along with us today? Okay, so we got 1 more minute to go. Got your ironing station already, your iron's plugged in. You need a little cutting area, hopefully a little bigger than mine, but whatever you got. Oh, Cindy sewing along with us too. That's great. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to begin. We're going to be making this placemat. It's pretty easy, and the method for this border, this mitered border, is exactly the same on a fancy napkin. So it works exactly the same way. Where you turn the fabric, and this is actually mitered right here, but you don't have to worry about getting the miter right because we'll make it easy for you. So it's just 2 fabrics. The front fabric, or what they call the focus fabric, that is cut 14 inches by 18 inches, and the batting is cut the same. If you want to have yours bigger or smaller, that's entirely up to you. And when we get to the putting the back in, because the back comes around to be this border, I will show you how you figure that out, and it's pretty simple for whatever size you decide to do. Because sometimes you might want a bigger mat, smaller mat, whatever the case may be. Okay, so I'm going to set that right there so you can kind of see it. Pardon my arms. That's good. Fairly good. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, let me move all this stuff out of the way. I'm going to address each of these things as we get to it, rather than make you remember it for, tell you now and then you don't remember later on, because, you can't remember all this stuff. So I just hit my mouse and moved everything, so hold on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is move this out of my way. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our focus fabric, or our main fabric, and we're going to put it on our batting. And you could press it onto your batting and it'll hold it a little more. You don't have to be perfectly straight. Try to be as straight as you can, match up on all the sides as straight as you can. We are going to trim this down. So that's why I say you don't have to be perfectly straight. And if you keep seeing me move my arm over, it's because I'm trying to, the chat doesn't move up unless I move it, apparently. Okay, so we're going to quilt first. So we have our walking foot on. We have whatever thread you want to use for your quilting. I'm using embroidery thread, which is a little heavier and shinier. But in my bobbin, I just have my sewing thread, and my sewing thread is a light color because this is light. So in my bobbin, I have this. Because we're quilting, I want to change my stitch length to 3.0, and that means that I have a baby lot, so my regular sewing stitch length is 2.5, so I'm going to 3.0. I know sometimes I think it's Janome, they're at 2.0 to start with, so you just go to 2.5. You could go to 3.0. I'm not sure if the Janome 2.5 is the same as the Baby Lock 2.5. It should be. So going to 3.0, I like to have just a little bit bigger stitch. Plus, I'm going through layers. So if I have a small stitch and I'm going through layers, that stitch is going to be even smaller because it takes more thread to make a stitch, and I need to adjust for that. So I like 3.0. So I'm going to put my machine on 3.0 stitch length. I don't need to change anything else. If you have the pivot feature on your machine, you want to use that, because that means when you take your foot off the pedal, your needle will automatically go down and your foot will come up in case you need to adjust, and then you just hit your foot pedal. You don't have to keep reaching back to put your foot up and down. So I think I've covered all that. The backing border fabric is, in the case today, it's going to be 16 by 20. And when we get to that portion of it, I'll show you how I arrived at that number. And it's going to be very easy for you when you adjust for what size placemat you want to do. So I think we're all set to mark. So this time we're going to do, if you can see, the quilting. This is a well-loved placemat. So you see the quilting here? So this has 2 inches in between. So if you were doing the pot holder with me, over the pot holders with me over the last couple of weeks, we were doing 1 inch distance. So today we're going to do 2 inch so we can get it done faster. So for this, I'm going to use a friction pen. And I guess today I will pick green. See, I didn't put my pen away from last class. Oh, last one I used it. And we're going to be going on the angle again. And I need to get a longer ruler, don't I? So I needed a longer ruler, and I know you're going to get a little glare from the lights, but bear with me. So I'm going to set my small rulers aside for the moment. Get that out of the way. And get all this stuff out of the way. There we go. So I want to use my 45. So I'm going to look for my 45-degree line on my ruler. And I'm going to place that 45-degree line along the top of my placemat. I'm not going to worry about starting in the middle because it's easier for you, especially if you're a beginner with this 45-degree angle stuff. It's easier for you to just have that 45-degree angle somewhere on your placemat. Doesn't matter where. Okay? So you can see this angle of the ruler, but the 45 degrees is running straight across the top of my placemat. See if I can push up a little higher. There we go. Okay? So once you have your 45-degree placement of your ruler, then you're just going to draw a line. Okay? Guess, boy, that you can see that that's a what's real dark to me. I'm not sure how dark it is to you. Then once I've done that, I'm going to move my ruler over so that the line of the ruler, I want 2 inches. So I have 2 inches from the edge of my ruler, and the 2-inch mark of my ruler is on the line I just drew. And I'm going to draw another line. Then I'm going to move up and do the same thing again. So my 2-inch line of my ruler is right on top of the line I just drew. And if you look on your ruler, the first line you drew will be on the 4-inch line of your ruler. Doesn't have to be exact. Don't get too excited. It's not your prom dress. It's just a placemat. I'm going to draw another one, and I don't know if I'll need that be that close to the edge. I'll see, but I'm going to draw the line anyway. Okay, so can you see? But you know what? Let me do it this way. Let me zoom in a little. So can you see my lines? So every 2 inches, here's my first line. And then I went 2 inches running parallel with the first line I did. Now I need to turn it around and head the other way. So here's my lines that I just drew. Now I'm going to continue on across this way. My ruler again, the straight line of my ruler is on the line I just drew. So if I look at my straight line of my ruler, somewhere your 45-degree line should be running this, straight this way, straight to your placemat. And I'm just going to keep going along, moving the ruler up 2 inches. So the 2-inch mark of my ruler is always on the line I just drew. You don't need to draw the darkest line in the world. And if you skip a couple spots with your marking, it's okay. As long as you can keep on, your eye on line with your stitching. Now, my ruler has 2 45s, one going this way and one going this way. So now that I've moved over, I can see my 45-degree line running right parallel with the top of my placemat. Yours might be at the bottom, yours might be at the side, but the ruler's on the 45, so the 45 line will be either straight vertically or straight horizontally. Oh, I guess I drew that one already. And then I'm going to go to the end. If I'm a half inch from the edge, I might draw the line, but I may not. It may not be sewing it. Let me just check to see if there's any questions. Okay, so now I have all my lines drawn this way. Now I need lines going the opposite way. So let me see what is the best way to do that. I'm going to turn my placemat. So here's my lines going across this way. So if I put my ruler, let's see if this works. If I put my ruler, so the straight lines of my ruler are on the lines I already drew. See right here, you can see the lines I drew. You see how my ruler lines are going the same way. If I find my 45, again, my 45 will be going either horizontal with the end of my placemat, or it'll be going vertical with the side of my placemat. And don't worry about if the ruler's the 45's at the edge. It doesn't matter, because sometimes you just can't get there. It just needs to be parallel this way or this way. So my ruler is on the 45. So I'll go ahead and draw a line. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to move over 2 inches. So my 2-inch mark of my line of my ruler is on the line I just drew. And my 45 is either running parallel this across the top of my placemat or the side of my placemat, or it's running vertical with the left side of my placemat, which would probably be the top of the placemat. And I'm just going to keep marking my lines till I get to the edge every 2 inches. And then I'm going to turn it all the way around. And I'm going to put my ruler down on the very first line, my very first line I marked at the 2-inch of my ruler. And I keep moving my ruler over to the right. If you're left-handed, you'd probably be going to your left. The 2-inch line of my ruler is on the last line I drew. So if I look, I've lined up on the last line I drew on the 2-inch of my ruler. The lines, the straight lines going this way of my ruler, are running parallel with the first set of lines that I drew. Don't get all caught up with matching your ruler lines to this both ways. Just make sure that the 2-inch ruler line is on the last line you drew, and then just draw. Or mark, which I guess we're not drawing. Just a reminder, when you use a friction pen, you should always test it on your fabric before you mark it. I suggest that if you have a batik, you use chalk or something, because the friction pen chemical will bleach out the batik, so just be very careful with that. And I'm coming to my end. And I'm just going to mark that, and then I don't need that big ruler for a while. So if you look at mine, let me zoom in again. So you can see my lines going in both directions. So I have like diamonds going. So I'm just going to wait for a second for everyone to get marked, as I know sometimes you're watching me and you're not marking, and I'm marking as I go, so I might get ahead of you a little bit. If you want to put a couple of pins in your top, make sure you put pins like in between, not on the lines. Though I got a long pin, so I would have to move it anyways. But I'll put a few pins in. I just have to remember to pay attention where they are when I come by with sewing. And no matter what anyone tells you, you do not sew over your pins. And make sure you close your friction pen. So if you have the one with the top on or whatever, because it will dry out on you. Like, as in dry out forever. And I'm going to put one more pin in. So I'm putting one in down the bottom. Okay. You may have to adjust your pins as you go. It depends on whether you're using a walking foot or not, really. Now, if we were doing a big quilt, let me back up again. I'm doing pretty good at this today. Okay. So if we were doing a big quilt, we would start in the center and stitch out, in the center and stitch out. But we're just doing a placemat. So we can start at one end and go down, but I still start in the middle and go to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, and so forth. So you'll see that as we go. But I'm just going to pick a line. I'm just going to pick a line. So I'm picking this line to start with. So I think everybody's all set to go. I'm going to move my pin cushion out of the way. Let's see if I can move my machine a little closer up without being on top of my placemat. Now, normally, if I'm doing something like this, I would have my extension table up so it holds this whole thing up. But I can't put my extension table on today and use the mat without taking it on and off, and I'm sure you don't want to watch me do that. So I don't want to start at the very edge, because chances are I won't be on my fabric. I'm going to come in just a little ways so that my needle is actually on fabric. Okay, because this is going to be trimmed, so we don't need to do locking stitches to stop and start, because they'd only get cut off anyway. So we're just going to stitch. We're going to be at a moderate speed. As I say, fast stitching does not make good sewing. Or is it fast sewing doesn't make good stitching? So let's get started. And you notice I'm just guiding. I'm only here to steer. My machine should be pulling the fabric back. If your machine, if you have to be back here pulling, you either need to have your machine serviced, or you just need a better quality machine, because you shouldn't have to be back here pulling that, because that changes the length consistency of your stitches. Besides, it's a pain in the neck. I want to make sure I'm smoothing out my fabric as it's going along. You should always stop. Don't try to stitch the whole row without stopping. It's like, like holding your breath the whole time, because it's always good, especially with the pivot. If you just stop, the needle will go down, the foot will come up, and the fabric will relax a little bit. If you don't have pivot, just reach back and lift your foot up just a little bit. You don't have to lift it all the way up, and put it back down again. And if you're not straight on the line, it's okay, because we're going to iron those lines away. When I get to the end, I don't need to stitch off the fabric, because remember, we're going to trim it. We're going to be trimming it anyway. So just get close to the edge, and close to the edge is like 1/8 of an inch. And I know sometimes people say, well, I don't know what 1/8 of an inch is. Well, look on your ruler at 1/4 of an inch, and it's half that. And it's just one of those things that you need to kind of get used to eyeball, because stopping to measure everything just when you're like stitching back and forth, that's too much work. Oh, good afternoon, Alberta. I'm glad you're here. So now I ended here. I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to come back from where I started out. Stitching up and then stitching down, stitching up, stitching down, just helps keep the fabric from getting off kilter, so to speak. It isn't always a big deal with a small project, but it is a big deal with a big project, especially if you're sewing strips together. So it's just a good habit to just do it all the time, and then you don't have to remember when you're supposed to do it. Just always do it. Okay, so I stitched to the right of my first stitching. Now I'm going to go back up and stitch to the left of my first stitching. You shouldn't be watching your needle. You should be watching the front of your foot. Generally, most feet have a mark for the center. And try to watch that mark at the front of your foot, because if you're looking at your needle, it's kind of too late. You don't want to have to be moving it at that last second. So I'm coming by one of the pins that I put in, and the pin isn't in the way of my needle, but it is in the way of the toes of my walking foot. So why make your walking foot go over it? Just take the pin out. I'm not quite sure why people are insistent on leaving their pins in. I mean, there are instances when you do need to, but this isn't one of them. And I don't mean leave your pin in the whole time, but leave your pin in right up to the last minute. Okay, so now I'm going to turn all the way around, and I'm to the right of the last stitching I did. I'm going to continue on. And again, I'm coming up to another one of those pins I have, which isn't in the way of my stitching, but it is going to go under my walking foot, and I really don't want to do that. You want to try to keep your equipment in good shape. So I went over here. Now I'm going to go over to the other side, going the same direction, coming down the same direction. So I'm going to go back up, and now I'm to the left of the last line I stitched. And again, pin, taking that pin out. I really don't need pins anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and take this one out as well, because I've got enough stitching now that I shouldn't be moving much. If you have a bit of fabric in here, now it depends on how much room you have here. If you don't have much room, just take your fabric and kind of roll it. See how I have it rolled over? So you can keep everything nice and smooth. Excuse me. So I've come to the end. I've done left and right, or right and left, doesn't matter. So now I'm going to turn it and go head back. So I am to the right of the last stitching I did. Okay, now I'm going to go over to the left, but I'm going to go back up where I started like I did on the right side, and I'm going to find where I am on the left side. So I have even more placemat to the right of my needle, so I just need to fold it. I find if you fold it neatly, it's much better than if you kind of crush it all up, because then you have to go iron again, press again. And now I've come down on the left and come down on the right, or right and left, whichever, doesn't matter. So now I can spin it around and go to the right side of the stitching I just did. And if you forget to spin it around and you stitch in the same direction, it's not the end of the world, but just start doing it right the minute you think of it. It's just a good habit. And then I'm going to go back and do the one on the left side. You may have more on the left than on the right, depending on where you started. I was lucky this time. I came out both the same side, and trust me, it wasn't anything I gave any thought to get it right. Just luck. Okay, so now I've done the left and right. Now I can just spin it around, and I'm on my last one, my last little edge. And I maybe was supposed to have my fabric over here, but this last little edge, I'm fine. There's nothing drastic going to happen. I'd rather have all this fabric out from under the arm of the machine. Okay, so I'm all done stitching this way. Now I got to stitch this way, and I'm going to start the same exact way. I'm just going to stop for a second and see if anyone has any questions. So I'm going to pick somewhere in the middle again. So, and now I'm heading on the other angle of stitching. I don't have to worry about pins anymore because I don't have any pins left. If you do have pins left in, take them out. You don't need them anymore because you've stitched all the way across the fabric and batting. You don't need to worry about it anything shifting and moving. But I'm still going to smooth out as I go. And if I'm not right on my line, it's okay. For heaven's sakes, don't pull your stitches out. Just get it right the next time. Don't forget, all the marks we made are going to iron off. Nobody will know whether you had them right or not. So I ended. I'm going to turn so that I'm heading back. And I'm going to the right of the stitching I just did. Now, see, I really stitched too long without stopping. I should have stopped and just let the foot come up and relax the fabric. Okay, so I came down the right side, and I'm going to go back up and come down the left side. And before I go too far, I've got my little mini iron next to me. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on because I didn't have mine on. So it's hot when I get done stitching. Okay, so Alberta was asking, do we always work from the center out? Yes, always. It's just a good habit to be in. Even if I was making a little mug rug, which I could do this exact same thing and make a mug rug, obviously smaller. It's just a good habit to be in because when you do something bigger, it's going to make a difference. If you're putting strips together, you need to do that same thing. You need to come down with, so you put two strips together, sew down your 1/4 inch, turn the strip over and go back because your strips will start to, oh, let me do it here. Your strips will start to bow a little bit if you don't do that. So I just say, and of course, that's not anything based on the center. That's stitching down and then stitching up and stitching down and stitching up. But yes, I always start somewhere near the center for everything I do. It just makes a better habit so that when it really counts, I don't go, oh, I forgot to do that this time. I just do it all the time. Okay, so I've come down left and right of the stitches I started with, I believe, yeah. So now I'm going to turn, and I'm going to be to the right of the last stitching I did. If you want to be to the left, that's okay. So left and right, right and left, either one. Make sure when you're stitching, you don't get your shoulders all hunched up, because we do that. We get all hunched up and get in here. Just, take a second every now and again, put your hands down, roll your shoulders a little bit, and get them back down again. Otherwise, that's why your back will either be tired or sore when you're done sewing. It's just because we stay hunched in. Normally, my machine would be out closer here so that I'm not hunched in, but I find, because I'm working with it further away so you can see a little bit, that I tend to get my shoulders get up, like my shoulders end up being up by my ears somewhere. Okay, so I came from up above down on the right. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but on the left. So I'm just going to pull my placemat forward. I'm going to find the last stitch line I worked on, fold this out of my way, and now I'm to the left of that the last stitching I did on the left side. Everybody doing okay? Okay, so now I did right and left coming down, so I'm just going to twirl around. So the stitching I just did is on the left. I'm stitching on the right, coming down. Now I'm going the opposite way. You notice my hands are nowhere near my needle, nowhere near my foot, trying to stay out of trouble. My hands are out here. My machine doesn't need my help pulling the fabric through. We like to boss our machines, but our machines really they boss us. So I've come down the right side. Now I'm going to go back up and come down the left side. So the last stitching on the left side is to the right. I'm stitching to the left of that last stitch line. Again, if your fabric's in the way, just fold it or roll it over. Don't crease it. Just roll it over a little bit. So I got plenty of room here where nothing's in the way. Okay, so I did the left and right and left. Oh, Christine, so far so good. Yeah. Well, where's my thumbs up? I don't know how you do that in the chat part. So I'll give you, look, 2 thumbs up. So I did right and left, and I'm just going to turn around, head back down the other way. Okay, so I did my last line. Wasn't really straight either. And I only have this little bit here. So I can go ahead and stitch that. I just don't want you to go next time, oh, well, I only have 2 left. And next time, oh, I only have 3 left. So if you only have one little one left to do when you're here, go ahead and do it. Now I'm not turning my fabric around. I'm just going to go over to the other side and start at the top again. Roll my fabric up. I know with some machines like the Baby Lot Verve or the Sophia 1, Sophia 2, you only have like a little 5-inch opening. So just roll your fabric. Like I said, don't crease it, don't mat it down, don't bunch it up, because it'll just be all wrinkly, and then you don't want to be sewing wrinkles in. And we'll just finish up this side. So for those of you that are finished, if you need to take like a bathroom break, get a drink, stand up, stretch your legs, go ahead and do that. And then I just have that one little one left to do. Okay, so now we have all our stitching done. I'm going to move my machine again out of the way. And now I'm going to go ahead, and give this a little press. And that little press, I have a little mat, so I am doing a little press. So you can go ahead and take yours over to your ironing station or your ironing board or wherever you are, because it's really better to press with a bigger iron and press. Don't be like a washboard. And I'm not doing, I am actually picking up and moving to the next spot. You might not be able to see that. So as I go to each spot, I'm picking up my iron. And I'm pressing little areas because I only have that little tiny mat. Okay, so isn't that pretty? And nobody knows whether you were on the lines or not. So there we go. In case you're wondering what these are, because I kept thinking that they look like turkeys, and this little thing was like what goes on the turkey leg, but it's a bear that's a chef. See, there's the bear, and there's the little honey pot. But every time I look at it, I think it looks like turkey. So someone see turkeys with me, I'll feel better. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple seconds or a minute to make sure you're all caught up. Get out your ruler, and I think we're going to use the big ruler. And let me move my machine a little more out of the way. Glad I don't have the big machine out. That would be painful to have to keep doing that. Okay. And I know the ruler is going to reflect. So what we want to do now is we're going to trim this down, because when you're quilting, you see in this spot, I got fabric that's past the batting. Over on this side, I have batting past the fabric. So, and that just happens when you're quilting. It just isn't going to be perfect. But we're okay with that. So whatever size you decide you want for your finished placemat, go an inch or two bigger. So an inch, maybe 2 inches total bigger. An inch might be okay. So that you can trim down and make it all nice and even. Okay, so rotary cutter, mat. So some of you may move over to your cutting station. So what we want to do is we want to trim this to, what did we start out with? 14. So we're going to trim this to 12, 12 this way, 16 this way. Okay. I'm going to take some off each edge because I have a design that doesn't matter. So I usually, what I try to do is I like to get one side nice and straight without taking too much off before I address the other side. And again, it's going to depend on your quilting, what your design is. You might have a design or a fabric that has a print on it, not a design, a print on it, that there's a certain part that you don't want to cut much into. So right now I measure, I still measure 18 by 14. So if I'm, so 14 by 18, I'm taking an inch off of every side. Okay, but I don't just go ahead and hack the inch off. I want to make sure I'm square first. So I'm only going to take a little bit off of each side to make sure I've got a nice clean edge on all four sides before I do my final cutting. I hope that makes sense to you. So right now I'm not concerned with getting this to be 12 by 16. Right now I'm only concerned with trying to make it nice and straight on all four sides. So I'm going to try to line up with my mat as best I can on the top and the bottom. And I can see my bottom's off a little bit. So, and that's why I want to make sure I trim a little off each side. So using my ruler, and I want to see if I can follow the lines of the ruler across the top and the bottom of my placemat. And we're going to be trimming the top and bottom too. So if it's not exact, it's okay for now. So I'm taking off about 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to turn it all the way around. Now, I'm hoping this side, let me move over a little bit. Hoping this side over here is now pretty straight. But it really is dependent on how this is. And it doesn't look too bad. But I'm going to lay my ruler down again. And I'm going to try to line up the top of my placemat and the bottom with some of the straight lines of the ruler, getting it as straight as I can. And I want to come in far enough in that I make sure that if I have more batting than fabric, I want to make sure that my batting and fabric are even. And again, I just took a little off. Now I have to go this way. And normally I would turn my mat, but I don't have room enough here. So if you're at your cutting area and don't go to edge of your mat, turn your mat so you have more room if you can. And I'm going to try to line up my top and bottom, which were the two sides I just did, get them as straight as I can. I'm lining up my ruler lines with the top and the bottom. Just pick any line that works. I also want to make sure that if my fabric is more than my batting, I need to just lift up to make sure that when I trim it, I'm trimming off fabric and batting so that the fabric and batting are equal. And remember, we've got plenty of room to work with. So you can probably see how it's thicker at this end and it was thinner at that end. Can you see the difference between the two? And that's just from quilting. You didn't do anything wrong. So I'm going to flip this all the way around. Now I should have 3 sides that are straight. And the key word there is should have. So I'm going to look across the top. Then I'm going to look down this side. And again, I'm going to try to line my ruler lines up with the edge of my placemat, top and bottom. So you can see this one. Whoops, I can hold this up. This was really a difference between one end and the other. See if I can get that little skinny guy rolled over. See how fat this one is and how skinny that one is? But now it's nice and straight. Now I'm going to turn it back. And now I want to get my right measurement. I'm nice and straight now. If you're not, just trim a little more till you get yourself straight. Just little sections at a time. So I'm going to be 12 by 16, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So I have 17 and a half. Now, I want to try to take off some off of each side because I don't want my quilting to feel cockeyed. I'm not sure if it will or not because I've never done it that way. So I have, what did I say, 1.5 inches more than I need? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 and a half, and I want 16. So I'm going to take the 1/2 inch off this side for now. So I should be nice and straight across this line, and I should be straight across down here. Okay, my placemat is straight on the mat itself. So I'm going to go ahead and take off a half an inch. I'm going to turn it all the way around. And now I'm going over to the edge of my mat so I can just use my numbers across here. So I want to be 16 and I'm 17. So I can take a 1/2 inch off of this side, or I can take off 3/4 and then come back. But I'm going to go ahead and take the inch off and see how that works out. So again, I want to double check my lines of my rulers. Ruler, not rulers. My placemat is straight on my mat. And I need it to be 16. So I need to double check myself. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So even though my ruler says 16, I'm going to count it. But because I find sometimes, depending on your mat, I've noticed some of my students put the fabric at the 1. Well, then you've lost an inch. You need to be at the 0. So that's why it's always good to count and double check. And if you did cut it smaller, guess what? You just make a smaller mat. So now I have the size I need this way. Now I need to go the long way. So I'm not going over to the edge. I'm going to make sure I'm lined up here. I should be lined up here, and I should be lined up here. So I need to have it be 12, I think it was. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I have 13 and a half. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to take off the 1/2. Maybe I'll go to the 3/4. So if I go to the 3/4, it's a different line to follow. So I think if you stay at the even numbers on your ruler, it makes it easier. So my 1/2 inch is a 1/2 inch past the last inch mark on my mat. I want to make sure that my ruler is lined up top and bottom with my with my placemat. I want to make sure my ruler is straight. So everybody looks good. I'm taking off a 1/2 inch. I'm going to turn it all the way around. This time I'm going to go over to the edge of my mat to the 0 line over here. And I need this to be 12. And it's at 13. So I'm going to place my ruler down at 12. I'm going to line up my lines, top and bottom. Then I'm going to count. I want to make sure that I'm at the 0 over here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. My ruler's at the 12. Double check my instructions. I want it 12. So this is 12 by 16 if you want to write that down. And again, you can make it whatever size you want. So if you wanted to take off less, you can do that. Okay. So let me put this big ruler somewhere. So I'm going to turn my placemat, and I want to turn my placemat if it has a direction to it, you know, a top and a bottom. I want to have it so the top is at the top and bottom's at the bottom. And let me check if there's any questions. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a minute or two to catch up. Oh. And for those that are ready, you're gonna get your background fabric out. I mean, not background. I'm sorry, backing fabric out. To find mine. Here it is. So I'm going to pick my mat up for a minute. My top of my placemat. I'm going to lay down my backing right side down. And I'm going to place my mat in the center of it. So if I need to, I'm going to fold it in half. I only need to crease at the top. I don't need to crease the whole way down and give myself a permanent crease there. I'm just going to crease the top, crease the bottom, and it lined up over on these edges. Then I'm going to open it up. I can do the same thing in the other direction. Or you could line it up on your mat so that it's even. I just can't get over to the side and then you still be able to see. So I'm just going to crease this. So I'm just creasing like maybe, I don't know, 2 inches on the edge. I don't need to crease the whole way across because when I put this down, you can't see that crease anyway. So now I'm just going to fold this. And because this is thicker, it might not crease because it's got the batting. So I'm going to take and put a pin. So I did a little crease and I'm going to open it while I can still see the crease and just put a pin there. And I'm going to do the same at the bottom. I'm going to crease it because that crease will stay there for a second, but it generally doesn't stay long. And then open it up and put my pin on that crease. And then I'm going to do the same thing in this direction. I want to make sure that my ends are even here. I'm going to put a little crease. Put a pin there. Oh, I don't want to pin into my back fabric. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Oh, almost picked up both sides at once. Okay, now I can take the pins because I got a pin here, pin here, pin here, and then a pin over here. Now my pins should line up with the crease I made of my back fabric. Remember, your back fabric is right side down. See? Pretty side down. And I've got to stand over mine to make sure I got it right. So your pins should pretty well line up with those creases that we made in the back fabric. Okay? And then I'm just going to stick a couple pins in here So I'm taking my pins off and I'm pinning my back fabric to my placemat. Okay? So while you're doing that, I'm going to talk for a minute about if you want a different size placemat, mug rug, candle holder, or candle mat, whatever you're doing. Let me get this out of the way. You want to have 2 inches of fabric on each side. Oh, knocking everything down. Did you hear it? So what you would do is have your back fabric down, and then you would trim it. If you don't want to calculate it, you would trim it 2 inches past your mat on each side. Okay, so if you want to make note of that, not 2 inches total, 2 inches on the left, 2 inches on the right, 2 inches on the top, 2 inches on the bottom. Okay, so if you want to make note of that. So that's why our back fabric was 14 by 20. I think sometimes people, when you say add 2 inches to each side, they just add 2 inches. So if it was 12 by 16, they would have made it 14 by 18. You need 4 inches total, 2 inches on each side. So does anybody have any questions? I'm going to take a sip of tea. I was getting a little parched. I want to make sure that my iron is heated up. Okay, so next, we're going to need a ruler, a smaller ruler. Now, I used and you can see mine looks pretty well beat up. I used the Creative Grids quick trim ruler. And it has, I'm going to come in, I'm going to zoom in because I have to zoom in to show you how this cuts anyways. So it has a 45, you can see that pretty good. It has a 45 that comes up, and see how it crosses over? And then it has a 45 that goes down. It looks like a teepee. Well, this crossover is the seam allowance you need, the 1/4 inch seam allowance that you need when you're going to miter a corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this. Let me see if I want to get where you can see me here. I'm going to place this on my placemat. Let me see. Oh, let me come in a little bit more if I can. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me come over here. Okay. So my 45-degree line is here and here, but I still have, you can see it here. I'm still a 1/4 inch past the edge of my placemat because I need a seam allowance. So if you have a regular ruler that isn't the quick trim ruler, let's see if I can get it on this one. So I have to find my 45. Oh, sorry. Forgot I was that close. I have to find my 45. So when I find my 45, first I want to do is line it up with this edge. I don't have another one here, but I want to move out. And let me see if I want to move out. So see how the corner, the very tip corner of my placemat is there we go, I have a 1/4 inch more ruler past the tip. So when I cut this fabric, what I'm doing is I'm making a seam allowance for the back fabric, and you'll see that why in a minute. So I'm just going to leave that there for a second. Okay, so my 45, let's see if I line up my 45 exactly. I'm not sure if you can see the, okay, so if I line up my 45 exactly, these numbers are in my way. So I'm going to move, excuse me, I'm first going to move my ruler. So see how I can see easily that 1/4 inch distance? Now I just have to make sure, here's my 45 line here. It needs to run parallel to this edge of my placemat. So if it's a 1/2 inch away up here, it should be a 1/2 inch away up here. And of course, you're not going to have it tipped up like this. It would be much easier. Okay, but this is the important part. Well, they're both important, but we need to have a 1/4 inch of ruler past that corner tip of the placemat. So I'm going to leave that there for a second. And then I'm going to go back to the quick trim rulers for those of you that might have that. So it's very important that you trim your back fabric a 1/4 inch past the tip of this edge here, because we're going to use that seam allowance to miter our edge. Okay, so now I'm going to put on my quick trim ruler. And do you see how it crosses over like a teepee? And there's one, I think there's one, yeah, see there's another one on this side. So either one. I'm going to lay that little teepee, and that's why this is so much easier. So 145 is here, the other 45 is here, and I've got that little edge out there. So I'm going to lift it up. Oh. Okay, so see, there's my 2 45s. You see, here's 145, there's the other 45. I'm going to slide them down. And obviously, you're not going to lift it up like this because you couldn't cut it. But I slid here's my 45. See my 2 45s? Here's one. Here's the other. Look, see, it says 45. I'm going to slide it back so that the corner of my placemat is right in where the TP crosses. So that gives me my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay? So I have to stand up to do this. Hold on. So are you ready? Oh, geez, almost sent my whole mat across the room. Okay. So 45, 1/4 inch of ruler is past this placemat, so it's just on this back fabric. And I'm just going to leave that there for a second and make sure if anybody has any questions. Okay, so before I cut, I'm going to check again. 45, 45, 1/4 inch past. Because if you mess this up, you got to get another piece of fabric. You don't have to do your mat over. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it to do the next corner. So I'm doing the same thing. 45, 45, and that 1/4 inch of ruler is past the placemat and onto the back fabric. And I'm just going to double check. So when I pick up my rotary cutter, I stop and double check again. I got to have that 1/4 inch of ruler past the placemat. I'm going to turn to the next one. Same thing. And you know, if you mess it up, it's just fabric, okay? It's just fabric. I know fabric costs money, but you can always cut up the pieces of this backing because back fabric because it's still a good piece of fabric. So you can put it in your stash. 1/4 inch past, 45, 45. Pick up my rotary cutter, double check again, 45, 45, 1/4 inch past the placemat. Okay, 45, 45, 1/4 inch past. Okay. So now in my excitement to show you that, oh, we did pin. So let me back up because we should have done this in a different order. Everything's okay, nothing's ruined, but I got excited about showing you that. So let me back up. So you know how we pinned? Well, before we trim, and we can do it now, we're going to go around and stitch the back to the front. So about 1/4 inch, we're going to stitch all the way around, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to take out my my quilting thread. So if you used your sewing thread, you're fine. But I didn't, so I'm going to take that out as soon as I find my scissors. Always pull your thread forward, your foot's up, pull your thread forward, never pull your thread back. I'm sure you've heard me say it a million times, but I'll say it 1,000,001. Your tension discs are made, let's see if I can get over here. Your tension discs are made for your thread to come this way. They're not made for your thread to go backwards. I always think about when you pet a dog, you go with the grain of his fur, and if you go this way, it just feels awful. Well, depending on the fur, I guess. So that little bit that you're concerned about wasting in thread is a minuscule amount to have your machine serviced because you pulled your thread back and got some caught in your tension disc. So that's $125 service call. It's going to take a lot of those little bits of thread to even get anywhere near that amount of money. Okay, if you have a machine that either has the plunger threader or the threader that's down here, you always make sure you do needle down, needle up, so your needle's in the proper place. Oh, your foot is up on it. Your foot is up so that your discs are open. If you have a machine that has the push button over on this part of the machine over here, you don't need to worry about where your foot is and all that because it'll take care of it for you. Okay, I'm going to change my stitch length. Well, you know what? For this, I'm going to leave my stitch length on the 3 because this is just a stitch to hold everything together. So you want to make note, if you're making notes, make a note that you want to stitch the front to the back before you do this trimming. We pinned, so we should be fine. So if you're yelling at me, it's okay. I'm okay with that. And we're going to stitch about 1/4 inch from the edge all the way around. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be hidden away. But we're still going to try our best. We don't need to lock the stitches. We do want to try to be straight because it does show on the back. So we're stitching all the way around. Oh, I think I should go one more stitch. Okay, I'm holding on to everything, keeping it taut. going to turn my iron on if yours is on auto set, because every time I sew, I want to press. So while we're coming around the last side, I'm keeping it nice and flat. I'm holding this edge, holding both fabrics together. Had my notes right in front of me, but I didn't. Apparently, I wasn't paying that attention. Paying good attention. You see how I'm hanging on here? I'm still hanging on here. And I made it all the way around, and everything looks just fine. Okay? So I'm going to take my pins out. And you're going to go to your ironing station. I'm going to be right here. And I'm just going to press where I just stitched. It just sets the threads into the fabric. So normally if I was doing this, I'd be on a bigger pressing mat. And I wouldn't be flipping it all around. I would just lay it out on my ironing board, my pressing mat, and just do all the sides and just let it cool for a minute or two. Okay? And I'm going to move my mat for just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a minute so everybody can get caught up. Everybody doing okay? Okay, so I still have my 1/4 inch on all sides, and I do apologize for getting ahead of myself. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, so we should have stitched the back, after we pinned the front to the back, we should have gone around and stitched 1/4 inch, pressed, and then done our trimming on the 4 corners, okay? Now, what we need to do next, and this can be done several ways, so let me move this a little bit that way. So what we need to do next, let me see if I can come in a little bit, okay, is I need to turn this a 1/2 inch in and press it. Okay, now, if I drew a line, so if I drew a line, and if you look on your Creative Grids ruler, you see how one side, I'm going to try to do this without the glare, there. You see how one side has black circles and one side has white circles. The black circles, that's an indicator that from the edge of the ruler to the line with the black circles is a 1/2 inch. And on this side, the white dots are at the 1/2, but it's a whole inch instead of having this line. If you look at your ruler, you'll see what I mean. So you could lay your ruler down 1/2 inch at the edge and mark the line. The problem is when you mark the line on this side, you can't see it when you fold it over. Okay? If you turn it over and mark the line this side, then when you turn it, you can see the mark of the mark you made and turn on the mark. Does that make sense? I use, and this gadget's been around forever, but I use this little guy. And if I look here, I have marks all the way down, and you can see how beat up mine is. So there's a 1/2 inch line right along that side. So I know a lot of you have one of these and probably haven't used it in forever. And this is the metal one. They do make a little, oh, it's probably about this size. I don't know what it's made out of. It's made out of some funny feeling stuff, but it doesn't get hot like this does. So what I want to do is, I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to get rid of that. Here, I'll put my hand here, get rid of that glare. But what I want to do is I want to fold my fabric over so it reaches evenly that 1/2 inch line. Okay, oh, hold on. That 1/2 inch line on the ruler. So the edge of this ruler is butted up against the fold of the fabric. But you have to be careful because metal, hot, it gets really hot. So I'm just going to come in and press. And then once I have it pressed enough, I take the ruler out. Oops, sorry. And I just press. Okay? So you see, I got that 1/2 inch. Now let me try the other way with the marking. And that's now, if I mark it with the friction pen, the minute the iron gets anywhere near it, that mark is gone. But let's try it. Let's give it a whirl, shall we? So I want to be on the back side. I'm going to take, let's go pink today. And I'm going to line my ruler up at the edge of my fabric with a 1/2 inch of ruler on the fabric. And I'm going to do a mark. Now, if you think about it, the mark that we're putting down is just past the 1/2 inch because the pen is past, at the edge of the ruler, which means it's past the ruler. Okay, so let me get my little iron. So see, I've made my mark. Oh, let me move in close and let's see if that, I'm getting better at this closer. So there's my mark. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to turn this. Oh, hold on. Maybe I should do it. Let me try this way. Oh, hold on. It's going to be, I would normally be on the other side, but okay. Do you see the line right there? So I'm folding it so I can, so the line, hold on. Let me crease it so you can see. The line should be on the back or the front of the back of the front. Okay. So when I crease it, can you see the little line is right? Let me see if I can make the line a little darker. Hold on. Because I want you to be able to see it. Because if we crease it and kind of crease it with our finger, we should be okay. Now, of course, my line's not the best straight now. But okay, there's my line. So if I crease this or flip it, you see how the line is still there? You see it right here? Okay? So if I press it, let me back up again. I don't want to go too far back. So I can see my line. on my, I can see the line where I marked it. But I don't want to see any fabric past that line. And I'm just going to give it a little finger crease, or you could use your wooden iron, okay? So I can still see my line. Can you see my line right there? Let me see if I can come in again. Sorry if I'm making everybody dizzy. Okay. You see my lines right there? See it going across? Because when I draw the line is past the ruler, so it's past the 1/2 inch. I don't want to have any fabric. See how you can see fabric there? I don't want any fabric past that drawn line. Okay? I'm going to back up because now you don't see anything. There we go. So I can see my pink line. Now I can go ahead and press this. My line's going to disappear, remember, because I use my friction pen. So when I turn it over, there's my 1/2 inch hem. Okay? So you can go ahead and do yours. Mark it or use, if you have the hem guide. I can come in a little closer. There we go. Okay? So now I need to do this on all 4 sides. And again, I'm on a little mat. You shouldn't be. I'm going to use my my hem guide, only because that's what I'm used to. I will say that marking that on the back, that's not too bad. That's not too bad a way to do it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how the friction pen would work, and that's why I had the other pen out. The hesitation in using a regular marking pen is, and it depends on the pen, the marking pen, is that sometimes when you put heat to a marking pen, it sets the pen mark permanently. So that's why you want to be careful. I'm trying to put this iron so I don't melt my machine. After a while, you can just about eyeball a 1/2 inch. And don't get all stressed if it's not perfect. Again, it's not your prom dress. You're not striving. Excuse me. You're not striving to be not perfect. That's not my point. My point is just if it isn't exactly perfect, it's okay. Okay, and I'm sorry for the glare. So I'll do this last one again with the marking pen. So I've got to move this only because it's warm, so the marking pen will keep going away. So I'm going to say, where did I put my ruler? So now I have to do it. I'm going to do it this way. Can you see down there all right? Yeah. So I'm going to put my ruler on the 1/2 inch. This is the black side of a Creative Grids ruler. So I have a 1/2 inch of ruler on my fabric, and the 1/2 inch line of the ruler is at the edge of my fabric. I want to be on the right side of the fabric, not the wrong side, but the right side. And let's see if I can mark this one so you can really see it. My ruler isn't quite long enough, so I'm going to move it along because I really do want to mark right to the edge. And I know you can't see that, but you'll be able to see this edge. And then I'm going to go this way. So when I move my ruler, I want to make sure it still stays straight with the edge of my fabric. Okay. So let me bring my pressing mat up. And let me see, I guess I have to do it from trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. So I'm going to fold over. Oh, so I've got to do it from this side because I want to fold over so I still see. There's my line. I still want to see that line. So I'm going to fold it over. And I guess I take this out for now because I can, oh, it's longer than the area I got. There we go. So I'm just going to fold it over. And you're going to have to decide. I'm trying to do it. It's hard for me to do it to face the camera. So I'm folding it so that on this side, I can't see. But if you're doing it along with me, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's seeing a lot of seeing, isn't it? See. Okay, I'm just going to finger press. I want to make sure. So I just finger pressed that and I couldn't see my line. So I got to open it back up again. I mean, if your line was like on the fold or whatever, as long as it's fairly even across, you'll be okay. And now I'm going to press that. And of course, as I press, I'm losing the line. So when I turn that over, looks pretty good. So let me back us up again. Oh, I keep backing up too far. Okay. All right, you with me so far? We're almost done. We're getting there. Any questions? Okay, so we've pressed a 1/2 inch under on all 4 sides. Okay, I got to flip my instructions over. Oh, got my head there. My project, or my goal over the month of October is to try to type up all the instructions for all these sew-alongs that we've been doing. And I've got to press this guy so that they'll be, written with pictures and so forth. That's my October project. So I handled it so much that this guy was flipping back up again. So I'm just going to go around and just, and probably if I was at my ironing station, I might give it a little best press. Okay. Now we got to miter our corners. Ooh, let's not get too nervous now. Get all this stuff out of the way. Gonna bring my machine back in. I'm gonna change my stitch length back to my default. In my case, it's 2.5. Remember, we have sewing thread in now. We're done with our quilting. So now what I want to do is I want to take a corner, and what I'm going to do is I want to sew along here. So I want to fold this corner, right sides together, fold this corner. You see how we are? So the corner of that front placemat should be right at that corner. And I'm going to pin it. I want to make sure I line up on this side. And you really do have to pin this one because the placemat, you know, being quilted and thicker will want to come apart. So if I line this edge up, my two edges, then this should line up fine. And I'm going to put a pin more towards this end, okay? And I'm going to stitch from this edge down to this edge. I'm going to start and I'm going to lock my stitch. So I can either do 3 back, 3 forward, or lock in place. And I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch, okay? And I want to end over here and lock my stitch. If you need to draw a line for your 1/4 inch, you can do that, okay? But my back fabric is lined up, top and bottom, the whole way down. So can you see? We're going to be stitching right across here. So we're not stitching on the placemat, the front of the placemat. We're stitching right outside of it. And I can have my walking foot on. It's okay. So I'm going to stitch in place because I need it to lock. I want to make sure that my fabric that we've just flipped over doesn't flip back on me. When I get to the other end, this time I'll go back 3 and forward 3, either way. So if I go back 3, I come forward 2. And the reason I do that is now my thread isn't at the very end. It's a little ways in. And I can even trim it a bit. I hate thread at the very end of something. Okay, so let me zoom in again. Okay, so see how we stitched? You see how I'm not on the placemat? I'm right just off of it. But then we want to trim. So this is the folded side. We're going to trim. So I'm not trimming to the edge, but I want to trim some of this off because what's going to happen is we're going to turn this. Where am I? And looky there, look what we got. So I don't want that bulk inside of there. Okay? Oh. So let me go back out again. There we go. That's far enough. No, let's go a little further, I guess. Okay. So now I'm going to do this side. I'm going to fold it. So right sides together. And I would be, you know, down on my mat for this, but I'm holding it up so you can see. So the back and the front edges of that folded fabric are even. I'm going to put a pin in near this end. When I stitch, okay, so the fold should be right with the point of the front of the, let me back up some more. Oh, I always go too far. There we go. Okay. So if you need to, when you hold your fabric together here, yeah, just put a clip down there. That just keeps this from trying to get away from you because you got a lot of weight down here. So again, I'm going to stitch from this edge, lock it, and go to the other edge and lock it. And I want to make sure that this doesn't flip back on me. Okay, so Christine is asking me, let me put that up. Could you repeat which ends are touching? Okay, so you're taking you're almost folding your placemat parallel to those lines that you stitch. So, and you're going to do this 4 times. So front and back, front and back, the back right sides are together. This is the fold that we just pressed in. And you got one on each side because you're going to do this 4 times, one for each corner. So what we're doing is we're taking this corner and folding this back like that. See? This is a corner of the mat. The placemat. Folding it back so the 2 back fabrics meet. Okay? Which gives you this angle that's not quite, but it's pretty much the same angle as your quilting was. Actually, it probably exactly is, or pretty close to it. Okay, see how the stitching of the quilting is there? All right. So if I'm looking at a corner, here's my corner where we just mitered. Okay. What I'm doing is and remember, you want to lock your stitch at each end. So the reason I like to pin more down where I'm ending is, number one, these guys want to pull apart from each other. So putting that clip there really helps. But I don't need much help down this end. I need this end to together because of the, and I'm just going to sink my needle right on the fold where the peak of that corner of the placemat is. I'm going to lock it, and then I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch. And again, if you want to draw a 1/4 inch line, you can. Once I start stitching, I'm going to take my pin out, but my finger is still holding this. And I want to go slow so that when I get to where that folded piece is, it doesn't flip up. And I'm going to stitch to the end, and then I'm going to stitch back 3 times, and then I'm going to come forward 2 and cut. And I always do this, most always, because I don't like to have that thread right at this end, because I can't clip it as well. So see how it's a few stitches back. And the only reason I'm clipping it is so it doesn't stick out when I turn this forward. And don't forget, after you stitch this, you're going to trim that fold side, but don't hit your stitches. Oh, can you see? Here's the trim. So I trimmed the corner of this off. I trimmed off the fold. Okay? So I'm just going to keep going around. It gets a little more awkward because now these guys, they want to come in now. That's okay. They just have to behave for a while. So what I'm going to do is, again, here's the corner of my placemat. I'm going to fold it in half. And I can follow that quilting line. I'm going to fold it in half. So the right sides of my backing fabric are together. And I want to line up. So this top one, the back one are lined up together. And I can put a clip in to be my third hand. All right, I just want to make sure my corners match. I'm going to put my pin in. And I'll be putting my needle in at the fold and sinking my needle. That just means I'm going to turn my wheel until my needle goes in where it's supposed to. I'm not going to hit the pedal and hope for the best. And just make sure it's nice and flat. You don't want to have any like bump in it. So I'm just I'm putting my pins because I know those are that's lined up. And I'm pushing towards the fold. So that ends up folding in the right place. Sinking my needle, locking my stitch, starting my 1/4 inch seam. And I get a little ways, take the pin out. When I get to the end, I'm going to go, and I need to hang on 3 stitches back, 3 or 4, it's okay. I'm going to come forward 2 and cut my thread so that I can trim this little fella off without being at the edge of my fabric. And now I have a thread, I don't know why, but I have a thread at that end. I'm just going to trim that. And then I'm going to trim. So see how that corner is there? Here's what I'm doing. Can you see? I'm just cutting that off, but I'm leaving. I'm not going to the stitches. I'm probably 3 threads before the stitches. So one more side, and let me stop for a minute because let me stop for a minute because I only have one corner left if I need to demo it up close again. I got to take my clip out. Okay, Christine says I keep freezing, so let me stop for a minute because I'm not getting freezing on my end. But let's see if it just needs to catch up with itself. And I'm watching it on YouTube across the room. It seems to be okay now. So I didn't get any freezing, Christine, so I'm not sure if it's my end, your end. You know how the internet is. Okay, so I have one side left. If you already got it, you don't have to, pay attention again. Just go ahead and get your ends done. So I'm folding back. The first thing for me, the easiest way to do it is to fold back. And it gets a little harder because this guy is now folded under. But I want to fold back and get this edge lined up and this edge lined up and put that clip in. Then I can come up and address whatever I need to address up here. So this clip just helps because this all wants to come apart. It's because it's a little heavier. Okay. So if you want to put a pin in here, that's fine. So if you want to put your pin further down instead of up here, let's see how that works. Because that way you can leave your pin in. Oh, I'm good now, Christine. Thanks. Thanks. And thanks for making note of that because I can just stop for a second and see if it all catches up with itself. Okay, so this time, instead of putting the pin here that I have to take out, I'm moving it down a little bit. See how I'm down a little bit? So when I stitch across here, let me push this pin down more. The pin hopefully won't be in my way. It may be because I have the walking foot on, but maybe not. So again, starting at the fold, lock the stitch, come to the end, lock the stitch, make sure this doesn't flip up. And see, I put my foot down before I should have. I should have sunk my needle first. I hope my nose isn't in your way. Oh. Okay, lock my stitch. Lost my paddle. And then go ahead and make my 1/4 inch seam. Okay, I'm gonna let my pivot come up so that because it was kind of catching, my foot was kind of catching the little hem we made. And then when I my foot lifted up, it laid back down again. Okay, and then I'm gonna go 3 or 4 back, and then 2 forward. My watch is coming undone. And cut it. Normally I don't sew without my hands, but I was trying to fix my watch and not take up your time. Okay, and again, I'm going to clip the fold area. Okay, we good? So now I'm going to give these I'm going to press these seams open. And I should be able to press them open okay because of clipping that. I'm clipping that where the fold area is. So I'm going to press them open. So first I'm going to use my fingers because it's such a tiny seam. And because of the angle, let's see if you can see. Because of the angle, I don't have to worry about the seam allowance sticking out here because it's actually angled the other way. So again, you see I'm just pressing, not ironing. So I'm going to go to the other one. Ooh, that was hot. So let me back up because I'm out of angle. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to press this open with my fingers first because it's too hard to try to open that with the point of your iron. I mean, you can try it, but why make it hard on yourself? I couldn't grab a hold of that one. Pressing it open, and open just means, a seam in each direction. I'll show you on this one. And just hold it on there for a second. So see, that's pressed open. And one more. And see, now all 4 of them are done. We back up again. Oh, and I was doing so well at that.